I'd rather lose the job than let someone like you talk down to me. The words slip out before Olivia Carter can stop them, sharp and steady, cutting through the cold rain that's been falling over downtown Chicago for the past hour. Water drips from the edge of the glass building behind her, her hair is damp, her cheap canvas toque clings to her side, and the portfolio inside, her only shot at a fresh start, is already soaked at the corners. She stands just outside the revolving doors of Hayes and Company, heart pounding, sneakers squeaking faintly against the wet concrete as a security guard shakes his head for the third time, saying she needs a valid badge to enter, that freelancers can't just walk in during a storm like this. Olivia exhales hard, frustration rising in her chest, because she's not a freelancer, not today, not anymore. This was supposed to be her first real opportunity, her one chance to step into a building where people wore tailored suits and spoke in quiet confidence. She glances at her phone, the interview email still open, the time blinking in red. She's already 7 minutes late, and then she sees him, standing just a few feet away under the steel overhang, dry, composed, hands tucked into the pockets of a dark wool coat that probably costs more than her monthly rent, a man watching the whole scene unfold like it's none of his concern, tall, calm, expression unreadable. Olivia's jaw tightens. Of course, another one of them, someone who belongs here, someone who doesn't have to explain themselves to get past a door. She steps toward him without thinking, rain tapping against the pavement between them. Are you just going to stand there? She snaps, voice edged with disbelief. He blinks once, slightly caught off guard, but says nothing. That only makes it worse, because I've been trying to explain for the past 5 minutes that I have an interview upstairs. She continues, lifting the damp folder in her hand, and apparently that doesn't matter unless I look like I belong here. The man studies her for a moment, eyes flicking to the worn edges of her portfolio, the water stain spreading slowly across the paper, then back to her face. There's no arrogance in his posture, not exactly, but something about his silence feels deliberate, like his choosing not to intervene. Olivia lets out a short, incredulous laugh. Right, of course you won't say anything, she mutters, shaking her head. Why would you? People like me aren't your problem. The security guard shifts awkwardly, glancing between them, but Olivia doesn't stop. She can't, not now. Not after everything it took just to get here. You know what? She adds, her voice quieter but firmer. I'd rather be late, or even lose this job, than stand here and be treated like I don't exist. The rain picks up, a gust of wind pushing cold air between them, and for a second, everything stills. The man's gaze sharpens just slightly, something unreadable flickering behind it, but he still doesn't speak. Olivia holds his stare for a beat longer, searching for some kind of reaction, some acknowledgement, anything. But there's nothing, just that same calm, measured silence. Her grip tightens around the folder, the paper inside bending under her fingers, and with a final breath, she turns away, stepping back toward the street, shoulders squared even as doubt creeps in. Maybe this really was a mistake, maybe she never belonged in places like this. Behind her, the glass doors slide open briefly, warm light spilling out before closing again, and the man remains where he is, watching her walk away into the rain, as if the moment, her words, her defiance, the quiet storm in her voice, has settled somewhere deeper than either of them expected. Olivia barely makes it halfway down the block before the adrenaline starts to fade and the reality crashes in harder than the rain soaking through her jacket. Her steps slow, then stop completely under a flickering streetlight as she stares at her reflection in a dark storefront window, damp hair clinging to her face, mascara slightly smudged, the edges of her portfolio curling inward from the water. This was supposed to be different, she thinks, pressing her lips together. This was supposed to be the day everything shifted. She glances down at her phone again, the interview confirmation still there, the address unchanged, the opportunity still technically real, but now it feels miles away, like something she has already lost. A bus rumbles past, splashing water onto the curb, snapping her back to the moment. You cannot quit before you even try, she murmurs under her breath, almost like she is arguing with herself now instead of a stranger. Her grip tightens around the portfolio as she exhales slowly, shoulders rising and falling with the weight of the decision. Going back means risking humiliation, risking being turned away again, risking facing that man if he is still there, but walking away means confirming every doubt she has ever had about herself. Olivia closes her eyes for a brief second, then turns sharply on her heel. The rain feels colder on the way back, or maybe she just notices it more when she reaches the building again. the revolving doors slide open as someone exits, warm air brushing against her skin, and this time she steps forward without hesitation. The security guard looks up, clearly surprised to see her again, his expression shifting as if preparing to repeat the same line, but Olivia speaks first, her voice steady now, quieter but stronger. "My name is Olivia Carter," she says, pulling her phone up, the email ready. "I have a scheduled interview at 9:30 a.m., and I am already late, so if there is any way you can verify that, I would really appreciate it." The guard hesitates, glancing at the screen, then at her. Something in her tone making him pause, he sighs softly, tapping into his system, fingers moving across the keyboard as the seconds stretch longer than they should. Olivia can hear her own heartbeat in her ears, loud, insistent, as if counting down to another rejection. Then the guard nods once, almost reluctantly. "All right, you are on the list," he says, stepping aside just enough to allow her through. "Take the elevators to the 22nd floor." Relief hits her so suddenly it almost feels unreal, but she does not let it show. She nods quickly, offering a quiet thank you, before stepping inside. The lobby is everything she imagined and more. Polished marble floors reflecting the overhead lights, the soft hum of conversations blending with the distant sound of heels clicking across the space, people moving with purpose, with confidence, with belonging. Olivia straightens slightly, trying to mirror that energy even as she feels completely out of place. As she walks toward the elevators, she catches a glimpse of herself again in the mirrored wall, water droplets still clinging to her jacket, her shoes leaving faint damp prints behind her, but her eyes are different now, sharper, more focused. The elevator doors slide open with a soft chime, and she steps inside, pressing the button for the 22nd floor with a steady hand. As the doors close, sealing her in a quiet, reflective space, her mind flashes back to the man outside, the way he had watched her without interrupting, without correcting her, without defending himself. A strange mix of irritation and curiosity lingers, but she shakes it off, forcing her attention forward. This is what matters now, she tells herself. This is the moment that decides everything. The elevator begins its smooth ascent, each passing floor marked by a soft digital tone, and with every number that lights up, Olivia feels the weight of her choice settle into something stronger than fear, something closer to resolve, because no matter what happens next, she knows one thing for certain: she did not walk away. The elevator doors slide open with a soft chime, and Olivia steps out into a space that feels quieter, sharper, more controlled than the lobby below. The 22nd floor is different, less crowded, more deliberate, with glass walls, muted tones, and people who move with the kind of confidence that does not need to be announced. She takes a breath, adjusting the strap of her damp tote against her shoulder as she approaches the reception desk, where a woman in a navy blazer looks up with a polite, measured smile. "Good morning, how can I help you?" she asks, her tone calm but efficient. Olivia offers a small nod, trying to steady her voice. "Hi, I am Olivia Carter. I have a 9:30 interview with the design team," she says, placing her slightly warped portfolio on the counter. The receptionist glances at her screen, typing quickly, then nods. "Yes, you are here. They have been expecting you," she replies, though her eyes flick briefly to Olivia's rain-soaked jacket before returning to the screen. "Please have a seat. Someone will come get you shortly." Olivia thanks her and moves toward the waiting area, each step echoing softly against the polished floor. She chooses a chair near the window, setting her portfolio carefully on her lap, trying to smooth out the edges as if that might somehow erase the evidence of the morning. Outside, the rain continues to fall in thin, steady lines, blurring the skyline into something distant and grey. Inside, everything feels precise, controlled, untouched by chaos. She watches as two employees walk past, discussing deadlines in low, focused voices, their words quick but confident, like they belong here in a way she is still trying to understand. Olivia presses her hands lightly against the cover of her portfolio, feeling the uneven texture beneath her fingers, and for a moment, doubt creeps back in, quiet but persistent. What if they see this and decide she is not ready, not polished enough, not worth the risk? She swallows, straightening her posture, reminding herself why she came back, why she did not walk away. Across the room, a glass door opens, and a man in his early 40s steps out, scanning the area before his gaze lands on her. "Olivia Carter," he calls. She stands immediately, offering a small, professional smile as she walks toward him. "That is me," she says, extending her hand. "Daniel Brooks, head of product design," he replies, shaking her hand firmly, his expression attentive but not unkind. Come with me. Olivia follows him down a corridor lined with framed campaigns and concept sketches, each piece more polished than the last, each one a reminder of the level she is stepping into. They enter a conference room with a long glass table and a large screen at the far end. Daniel gestures for her to sit, and she does, placing her portfolio carefully in front of her. I understand you had a bit of a morning, he says casually, settling into his chair. Olivia hesitates for half a second, unsure how much he knows, then offers a small, controlled smile. Something like that. But I am here now. Daniel nods, as if that answer is enough, then leans back slightly, studying her. Good, he says, because we are not just looking for perfect presentations here, we are looking for people who can handle pressure. Olivia meets his gaze, something in her posture shifting, becoming more grounded. I can handle pressure, she replies, her voice steady. Daniel's expression flickers with interest, and he gestures toward her portfolio. Then let us see what you have brought us. Olivia takes a breath, opening the folder, revealing the pages she had worked on for months, ideas shaped in late nights and early mornings, sketches that carry pieces of who she is. As she begins to speak, explaining her concepts, her choices, her process, she feels the nerves settle into something sharper, more focused. This is where she belongs, not in the rain outside, not arguing at the door, but here, proving herself, and somewhere beyond the glass walls of the conference room. Unnoticed by her, a familiar figure pauses for just a moment, watching through the reflection before continuing down the hall, silent as ever. Olivia's voice grows steadier with every sentence, the initial tremor replaced by clarity as she walks Daniel through her concepts, her fingers lightly turning each page, revealing layered sketches, annotated layouts, and refined digital mock-ups. She explains not just what she designed, but why, the reasoning behind every color choice, every spacing decision, every small detail that most people would overlook but that she had obsessed over during long nights at her kitchen table. Daniel listens without interrupting, occasionally nodding, occasionally leaning forward just slightly as if something she says catches his attention. This one, he says at one point, tapping the edge of a page. What made you go in this direction? Olivia does not hesitate, because the original campaign feels distant. She replies, meeting his eyes, it looks impressive, but it does not feel human, and people do not connect with things that feel out of reach. There is a brief pause, just long enough for the weight of her words to settle in the room. Daniel studies her for a moment, then leans back again, a faint shift in his expression suggesting approval, or at least interest. And you think you can change that? He asks. Olivia nods once, firm. I know I can. The confidence surprises even her, but it does not feel forced, it feels earned. The conversation continues, flowing more naturally now, less like an interrogation and more like a collaboration. Olivia begins to forget about the rain, about the awkward encounter at the entrance, about everything except the work in front of her. For a moment, she feels exactly where she is supposed to be. Then the door opens. It is not loud, not dramatic, just a quiet shift in the room as the handle turns and someone steps inside. Daniel glances up immediately, his posture straightening in a way that feels instinctive rather than conscious. Olivia follows his gaze, her attention pulled toward the doorway, and everything inside her stills. It is him, the same man from outside, the one who had stood under the overhang, silent, composed, watching her as she argued in the rain, except now he is dry, his coat replaced by a tailored suit, his presence somehow sharper, more defined within the clean lines of the conference room. For a split second, neither of them speaks. Olivia feels the memory hit all at once, her own words echoing back at her with uncomfortable clarity, the certainty in her voice, the accusation in her tone. The man's expression does not change much, but there is something there now, something more focused, more deliberate. Daniel stands halfway, offering a respectful nod. Ethan, he says, his tone shifting subtly. We were just getting started. Ethan Hayes. The name lands a fraction of a second before the realization does, but when it does, it is immediate, undeniable, and impossible to ignore. Olivia feels the air leave her lungs as if someone has quietly pulled it away. Her eyes flick back to him, searching for any sign that she misunderstood, that this is not what it looks like, but the room tells her otherwise. The way Daniel stands, the way the space seems to adjust around him, the quiet authority in his posture. This is not just another employee, this is someone at the top. Ethan's gaze moves to Olivia, calm, unreadable, but unmistakably aware. Ms. Carter, he says, his voice even, controlled. carrying just enough weight to confirm everything she is beginning to understand. Olivia's fingers tighten slightly around the edge of her portfolio, the damp paper pressing against her skin as the pieces fall into place faster than she can process them. The man she had challenged, dismissed, accused without hesitation is not just part of this company. He is leading it, and suddenly, the stakes shift in a way she did not see coming, the room feeling smaller, sharper, every word she said outside now echoing in a space where it actually matters. For a moment, no one moves. The quiet hum of the room seems louder now, sharper, as if every small sound has been turned up just enough to make the silence uncomfortable. Olivia feels the heat rise in her face, not from embarrassment alone, but from the sudden collision of everything she believed just minutes ago with the reality standing in front of her. She could say something, apologize, explain, pretend it was all a misunderstanding, but none of those options feel honest, and honesty has always been the one thing she refuses to compromise. Ethan steps further into the room, his presence shifting the air in a way that is subtle but undeniable, and without breaking eye contact for too long, he takes a seat at the end of the table, not rushed, not dramatic, simply certain. Daniel clears his throat lightly, glancing between them as if aware there is something unspoken hanging in the space. We were just reviewing Olivia's portfolio, he says, his tone professional, measured. Ethan nods once, folding his hands loosely in front of him. Then please continue, he replies, his voice calm, almost neutral, as if the encounter outside never happened. Olivia blinks once, grounding herself, forcing her fingers to relax against the edge of the portfolio. This is still her interview, she reminds herself, still her chance. She straightens slightly, her voice steady when she speaks again, even if her heartbeat has not caught up yet. This concept focuses on creating a more human-centered narrative. She continues, picking up exactly where she left off, refusing to let the shift in power take control of the moment. She explains her approach again, this time aware of Ethan's gaze, not intrusive but present, listening in a way that feels more analytical than judgmental. When she finishes, there is a brief pause. Ethan leans forward slightly, his attention fixed on the page in front of her. You said the current campaign feels distant. He begins, his tone thoughtful rather than confrontational. What would you change first if you had full control? Olivia does not look away. The tone, she answers without hesitation, it talks at people instead of to them, and people notice that, even if they cannot explain it. Ethan's eyes lift to meet hers, and for a second, the room narrows to just that exchange. There is no visible reaction, no immediate approval, but there is something else, something quieter, like interest that has not yet decided what it wants to become. Daniel watches carefully, as if measuring both of them now instead of just Olivia, and you are confident you can execute that shift? Ethan asks. Olivia inhales slowly, then nods. Yes, I am. The answer lands cleanly, without hesitation, without apology. Another pause follows, longer this time, stretching just enough to test her composure. Then Ethan leans back, his expression unreadable but no longer distant. Good, he says simply. Olivia is not sure if that is approval or just acknowledgement, but it is not dismissal, and that matters. The interview continues, questions moving into timelines, collaboration, adaptability. All the things that define whether someone can survive in a place like this. Olivia answers each one with the same steady clarity, her confidence no longer forced but built from the fact that she has nothing to hide. And yet, beneath it all, the memory of the rain, the confrontation, the words she spoke without knowing who he was, continues to echo quietly, not as regret, but as something unresolved, because now she knows exactly who she spoke to, and more importantly, he knows exactly who she is, and neither of them has chosen to pretend otherwise. By the time the interview ends, the tension in the room has shifted into something quieter, more controlled, but no less intense. Daniel closes Olivia's portfolio gently, his expression thoughtful as he leans back in his chair. Thank you, Olivia. That was strong, he says, choosing his words carefully. We will be in touch soon. It is the kind of answer that could mean anything, and Olivia knows it, but she nods anyway, offering a polite smile as she gathers her things, her fingers brushing over the slightly warped edges of the pages as if grounding herself in something familiar. She stands, smoothing the front of her jacket, still faintly damp, and turns toward the door, fully aware of Ethan's presence even without looking directly at him. Ms. Carter, his voice stops her just as her hand reaches for the handle. It is not loud, not commanding, but it carries enough weight to make her pause instantly. She turns back slowly, meeting his gaze, her posture steady even as her thoughts move. faster than she can organize them. Daniel glances between them, sensing something unspoken again, then quietly excuses himself, stepping out of the room and closing the door behind him, leaving them alone in a space that suddenly feels much smaller. For a brief moment, neither of them speaks. Olivia waits, not out of submission, but because she knows this moment matters. Ethan rises from his chair, walking a few steps closer, not invading her space, but close enough that the distance between them feels intentional. "You meant what you said out there," he says, his tone even, more observation than accusation. Olivia does not pretend otherwise. "Yes," she replies simply. There is no apology in her voice, no attempt to soften the truth. Ethan studies her for a second, as if confirming something he had already suspected, then nods slightly. "Most people would have taken it back by now," he says. Olivia exhales quietly. "Most people would not have been treated like that at the door." She answers, her eyes holding his. The honesty hangs between them, not aggressive, not defensive, just clear. Ethan's expression shifts almost imperceptibly, something sharper giving way to something more considered. "You assumed I was part of the problem," he says. Olivia lifts her chin just slightly. "You were standing there and saying nothing," she replies. "That felt like part of the problem." There is a pause, longer this time, but not uncomfortable, just real. Ethan lets out a faint breath, almost a quiet acknowledgement. "Fair," he says. The word lands differently than she expects, not dismissive, not condescending, but genuine. Olivia blinks once, not anticipating agreement. Ethan glances briefly at the portfolio in her hands, then back at her. "Your work," he continues, "it is not perfect, but it is honest." Olivia tightens her grip slightly, unsure whether that is criticism or something else. "And honesty is rare in rooms like this," he adds. Something in her shoulders eases, just slightly, though she does not fully relax. "I am not trying to impress anyone," she says quietly. "I am trying to do the work right." Ethan's gaze lingers for a moment, then he nods again, slower this time, as if the answer matters more than the words themselves. "Good," he says, echoing what he said earlier, but now it feels different, more deliberate. Olivia shifts her weight slightly, aware that this conversation has moved beyond an interview, into something less defined, more personal in a way that has nothing to do with familiarity and everything to do with truth. "If that is all," she begins, her tone respectful but firm, "I should go." Ethan steps aside without hesitation, giving her a clear path to the door, but as she reaches for the handle again, he speaks once more. "Olivia," he says, using her first name this time. She pauses, turning back just enough to meet his eyes. "Do not change what you said out there," he tells her, his voice steady. "Just make sure you are ready for what it means to stand by it." Olivia holds his gaze for a second longer, something unspoken passing between them, something that feels less like a warning and more like a challenge. Then she nods once, small but certain, and opens the door, stepping back into the hallway where everything feels louder, brighter, more distant than the quiet intensity she is leaving behind. And as she walks away, her heartbeat finally begins to settle, not because the pressure is gone, but because for the first time since she stepped into the rain that morning, she knows exactly where she stands. The hallway feels colder than before, or maybe it is just the shift inside Olivia that makes everything sharper, more defined. As she walks past glass offices and quiet conversations that seem to blur at the edges, she does not slow down until she reaches the elevator, pressing the button with a steady hand, her reflection staring back at her from the mirrored panel, still slightly damp, still not quite fitting the polished world around her, but no longer shrinking from it. When the elevator doors open, she steps inside alone, the silence wrapping around her as the numbers begin to descend. 21, 20, 19. Each soft chime marking the distance between the moment she just lived through and whatever comes next. She exhales slowly, replaying the conversation in her mind. Not the embarrassment, not the mistake, but the way he had listened, the way he had not dismissed her, the way he had said fair, as if her perspective actually mattered. It unsettles her more than if he had been angry. By the time she reaches the lobby, the rain has eased into a light drizzle, the glass doors reflecting a city that looks calmer but no less relentless. Olivia steps outside, pulling her jacket tighter around her, her mind still caught somewhere between doubt and something that feels almost like possibility. Hours later, she is back in her small apartment, the space barely large enough for a narrow bed, a second-hand desk, and a kitchenette that hums softly with an aging refrigerator. The air smells faintly of coffee and rain-damp fabric. She sets her portfolio down carefully, laying each page out to dry, smoothing them as best she can, her fingers tracing the lines she spent months creating. this is all she has, she thinks, not in defeat, but in clarity. This is everything she is building from. Her phone buzzes suddenly against the table, pulling her out of the moment. She glances at the screen, expecting a spam notification or a reminder she forgot to turn off, but the name that appears makes her pause. Hayes and Company. Her heart skips once, sharp and unexpected. She answers quickly, her voice steady despite the sudden rush of adrenaline. Hello, this is Olivia Carter. There is a brief pause on the other end, then a calm, professional voice responds, Ms. Carter, this is Daniel Brooks from Hayes and Company. I hope I am not catching you at a bad time. Olivia straightens instinctively, even though no one can see her. No, not at all, she replies. Daniel continues, we have reviewed your interview, and we would like to offer you a position as a junior designer on our product team. For a second, the words do not fully register, as if her mind needs an extra moment to catch up. She blinks, her gaze falling to the pages spread across her desk, the slight warping, the imperfections, the proof of everything she thought might disqualify her. I would like that very much, she says finally, her voice quiet but certain. Daniel's tone remains steady. Good, we believe you will bring a valuable perspective to the team, he says. You will receive the official details by email shortly. As the call ends, Olivia lowers the phone slowly, the room around her feeling different, not larger, not brighter, but somehow more real. She lets out a breath she did not realize she was holding, a small, almost disbelieving smile forming as she looks at her work again. She did not walk away, and somehow, that changed everything. Across the city, in an office that overlooks the skyline now clearing of rain, Ethan stands by the window, hands loosely resting in his pockets, the faint reflection of his own expression staring back at him. Daniel steps in quietly, holding a tablet. Offer has been sent, he says. Ethan nods once, his gaze still fixed on the view below, where the streets begin to dry and the movement of the city picks up again. Good, he replies, but there is something more behind the word now, something that lingers, something that suggests this was never just about filling a position, because for the first time in a long while, someone had stood in front of him without knowing who he was, and instead of adjusting, instead of softening, she had stayed exactly the same, and that is the one thing he cannot ignore. The next morning arrives faster than Olivia expects, the kind of early light that slips through thin curtains and lands softly across her desk, where her portfolio now lies dry but still slightly imperfect, edges curled just enough to remind her of yesterday. She stands there for a moment, coffee in hand, staring at it not with doubt this time, but with something steadier, something closer to ownership. By the time she steps outside, the air feels different. Crisp, clearer, the rain from the day before leaving behind a city that looks freshly reset. Hayes and Company rises in front of her again, just as tall, just as intimidating, but this time she does not hesitate at the entrance. The security guard recognizes her immediately, offering a small nod, a quiet shift in tone that feels almost like respect, and Olivia returns it without overthinking, stepping inside with a calm she did not have 24 hours ago. The lobby hums with the same energy, but now she moves through it. Instead of observing it, her steps more certain, her shoulders no longer tight with anticipation. When she reaches the 22nd floor, everything feels familiar and unfamiliar at the same time, like stepping into a place she has already begun to belong to but has not fully claimed yet. Daniel greets her near the reception area, his expression welcoming but professional. Good morning, Olivia, ready for your first day? He asks. She nods once, yes, her voice steady, and this time, she means it without question. The morning moves quickly, introductions blending into one another, names and roles stacking in her mind as she is guided through the workspace, shown her desk, briefed on current projects. Everything moves fast, but not in a way that overwhelms her, more like a current she has chosen to step into. By late morning, she is seated at her workstation, reviewing a campaign draft on her screen, her brow slightly furrowed as she studies the layout, already seeing where it could shift, where it could become something more human, more real. You are already analyzing it, a familiar voice says from behind her. Olivia turns, and there he is, Ethan Hayes, standing just a few feet away, his presence quiet but undeniable. The office around them does not stop, but it feels like it softened slightly, as if giving space to the moment. Olivia straightens instinctively, not out of fear, but awareness. It is my job now, she replies, her tone even. Ethan glances at her screen, then back at her. And what is your first impression? He asks. Olivia hesitates for only a fraction of a second, then answers honestly, it looks good, but it does not feel like anything, she says. A nearby coworker glances up briefly, then quickly looks back down, as if unsure whether to listen or disappear. Ethan does not react immediately, his gaze returning to the screen. Considering her words, most people would say it looks good and stop there, he says. Olivia lifts her chin slightly. That is probably why it stays the same, she replies. There is that brief pause again. The same kind that happened in the conference room, where something unspoken is being measured. Ethan's expression shifts almost imperceptibly, not into a smile, but into something that acknowledges the consistency in her, the fact that she has not adjusted her voice to fit the room. Then do not let it stay the same, he says finally, his tone calm but carrying intent. Olivia meets his gaze, understanding the weight behind the words, not just permission, but expectation. I will not, she answers. Ethan nods once, then steps away without another word, blending back into the rhythm of the office as if the moment never demanded attention. But Olivia feels it settle anyway, something deeper than instruction, something closer to trust. She turns back to her screen, her fingers hovering over the keyboard for a second before she begins to work, not cautiously, not tentatively, but with the quiet certainty that she has been given more than just a position. She has been given a chance to prove that standing her ground was not a mistake, but the beginning of something that will change more than just her own path. Weeks pass, not slowly, not gently, but with the kind of momentum that forces growth whether you are ready or not, and Olivia feels it in every part of her day, in the way her mornings start earlier, in the way her ideas move faster from thought to execution, in the way people now stop by her desk not to question her presence but to ask for her perspective. The campaign she first critiqued has begun to change, not overnight, not perfectly, but noticeably, shifting from something polished yet distant into something that feels grounded, more human, more real. And every adjustment carries a trace of her voice. Late one afternoon, the entire team gathers in the main conference room, the glass walls reflecting a skyline glowing with the soft gold of early evening, and Olivia stands near the back at first, her hands loosely clasped, watching as the revised campaign is projected onto the large screen. Daniel leads the presentation, walking through the updates, the engagement metrics, the early response from test audiences, each point building toward something bigger. What we are seeing, he says, glancing briefly toward Olivia before returning to the room, is a measurable shift in connection, not just attention, and that matters. There is a quiet murmur of approval, subtle but real, and Olivia feels it settle in her chest, not as pride exactly, but as confirmation that she was not wrong. Then Ethan steps forward, the room adjusts almost instinctively, conversations fading into silence as he takes his place at the front. His presence calm but commanding without effort. He does not rush, does not overstate, he simply looks at the screen for a moment, then back at the team. This direction, he begins, his voice steady, did not come from following what has always worked, he says, it came from someone willing to question it. Olivia's breath catches slightly, her attention fixed, even though she does not move. Ethan's gaze shifts, finding her without hesitation. Olivia Carter, he says, not loudly, but clearly enough that the room turns with him. For a split second, everything stills again, just like that first moment in the conference room, except now the weight is different, not uncertainty, but recognition. Your perspective changed this campaign, he continues, and that is exactly why you are here. The words land clean, without exaggeration, without unnecessary praise, but they carry more weight than anything louder could. Olivia steps forward slightly, not out of obligation, but because standing back no longer feels right. She meets his gaze, steady, grounded, the same way she did in the rain, the same way she did in the interview, unchanged. There is a brief pause, and then, almost quietly, Ethan adds, "Do you still think I was part of the problem?" A faint trace of something softer moves through his tone, not quite humor, not quite challenge. A few people exchange glances, unsure of the context, but Olivia understands immediately. She lets out a small breath, the tension easing just enough for a hint of a smile to form. At the time, she says, her voice calm, yes. A ripple of quiet amusement moves through the room, but she does not look away. And now, he asks. Olivia considers the question for a second, not because she is unsure, but because she chooses her words carefully. Now I think you listened, she answers. It's another pause, but this one feels different, lighter, resolved. Ethan nods once, a small acknowledgement that says more than any long response could. The meeting continues, discussions moving forward, decisions being made, but something has shifted beneath